Welcome back to Last Longer, where I help you to not come so fast. If you missed episode 1, I showed you why you're dealing with premature ejaculation, how it even happened, whether you have lifelong prejac, it's been going on ever since you started having sex, or it's acquired prejac. This has been more recent. You don't really understand why it's happening. And then in the second episode, I shared my raw and uncut story of how I went through premature ejaculation and how I ended up overcoming it. So I definitely recommend episodes 1 and 2. In this particular episode, I'm going to focus in on exactly what to do to overcome it. Now that you're aware of what's really causing it beneath the surface, and you're aware of what led to this point, now we can start to disentangle it, dismantle it, let it go. So when I say exact steps, I mean, I'm going to really give you the main areas of your life to look at and things to do actually in those areas, or in some cases, things to not do. And yes, there are specific tools and approaches and practices. I created a program called Vigor Sexual Strength. They're all in there. I mean, it's very comprehensive. But in this episode, it's really going to be top level, going through everything, right? Let's start with what to do now, as in today even, or in your life in general right now. First of all, don't try too hard. I really want to make this an important point, because if your whole life is kind of organized around fixing something, or you're like, yeah, you know what, everything's pretty good in my life, my career, and I'm making money, and I have good relationships with other people, or whatever. It's like things are good, except this premature ejaculation thing. It's like this secret that I've been holding in my whole life. I have a lot of clients who would say the same thing. They're like, it's this secret. My friends don't even know about it. They don't even know that I'm dealing with this. And I've got to change this. I've got to change this. Yes, it's something you're choosing to shift. You're choosing to let go of the dysfunction, because, again, physiologically, your body can have sex for 20 minutes right now without ejaculating. You have the anatomy and physiology for that to happen right now. It's just about letting go of underlying stressors, rewiring neural circuitry that has gone down the same path over and over and over again, and changing beliefs, things like that. But really don't try too hard. Have fun as you let go of the not self. I call it the not self. I guess it could be KNOT as well, the knotted self. We're making ourselves freer, and we're making ourselves just more present and less concerned and less worried about being perfect. So take all of this less seriously. Sex is fun. Sex is joyful. It's an amazing part of life. So let's be in that energy around it. Another thing you can bring into your purview is to calm the nervous system. So living life with less tension, because tension is created when you have an upregulated nervous system. That tension can lead to the ejaculatory reflex happening more quickly, things like that. What does that mean? Well, first of all, being aware that you might be engaging in a lot of high alert behaviors that absolutely turn on that fight or flight response. And you might think, no, like I don't put myself in really crazy, stressful situations all the time. But every time you flip over your phone, or you have like 70, 80 flips a day, and you're engaging in social media, you're distracting, you're checking communications constantly, checking email, text, whatever, all the places where people could reach you. These are all moments in which you could be engaging and activating that fight or flight. It's a possibility. I'm not saying that always happens, but these high alert behaviors of distraction that we get addicted to, checking communications a lot, technology overuse, these are some low-hanging fruit to notice. For some, it may seem really hard to change that, but there are ways to calm your nervous system. I mean, if you're on your phone or watching TV or engaging in screen time right before you go to sleep, for example, your mind is way more active than if you're not doing that, if you're really winding down in a more natural way. Just noticing, are you living your life in this high octane, revved up way all the time? And you're like, oh, finally, a moment to just be, or finally, I got a massage for the first time in a month. How could you make your everyday more like a yoga retreat? And I say this because when my brother comes to visit me, the last 2 times, he's like, it's like a yoga retreat when I come over here. And I'm like, this is just literally how I live my life every day. It wasn't anything crazy special. We just had a start to the day. I mean, I don't wake up really early. I wake up. I start out usually with a meditation or yoga, have breakfast. It's not a super slow morning, but I mean, for someone who works in the world of academia as a professor, he's probably used to still continuing that school ritual routine life that he had as a child. And it's kind of like one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. You might get lucky if you have any free time or space for yourself. We're talking about prioritizing self care, prioritizing less thinking, less doing. Yes, you'll still get your tasks done. You can still get your work done. I mean, I have 3 kids. I run a business. I have responsibilities. It's not like I just sit here all day making videos like this. I do that sometimes. It's part of my mission. But what I mean is that calming your nervous system, and how do you do that? Well, there's lots of things you can do. I was just giving you like an overarching lifestyle example, but breath work is so good. Breath work helps activate, turn on that parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system. Let's do it together, Let's do it. Let's take a deep breath in through the nose. Exhale. Honestly, just like that. And I don't know what that was, 10 seconds or so, already feeling calmer when you extend the exhale longer than the inhale. Lots of different types of breath work you can do: meditation, mindfulness practices, walking around, earthing or grounding yourself outside, actually taking your shoes off and touching the earth is really good as well. Yoga, other forms of activity and movement, pretty much where you're not engaging the mind, but you're being present. You could be connecting the mind and the body with breath and movement, dancing, music. Who knows? Lots of things you can do, making music. But when you're calming the nervous system, right, like I said, it lowers tension. And that's a shift that helps a lot when it comes to overcoming pre-jack. Another would be awareness and control of your arousal. This will be a little bit more in the masturbation and in your partner sections that I'm going to get to in a moment. But in general, starting to be even more aware of what it feels like when you start to get aroused. Early levels of arousal. You might even kind of have a scale. You're like, oh yeah, the point of no return is like 9. I'm just not getting aroused. This is like a 2 or a 3. Typically, when you get to about a 7 or so, you might need to pull out or make a shift. And we'll get into some of those tactics that we can talk about later. Another area that really does help is pelvic floor strength, flexibility, and coordination. So just like if you were going to start training to run a marathon, a big part of it is definitely mindset and mental and commitment and choosing to be someone who endures and who perseveres, right? There are those underlying character traits that have a lot to do with marathon training and running. But you definitely want strong, fit, toned legs because you're running. So when it comes to the ejaculatory response, sex, this part of our body using our genitals, having good flexibility, strength and relaxation, by the way, strength and relaxation, and coordination, being able to distinguish the front of the pelvic floor, the perineum closer to the testicles, or the rear closer to the anus, feeling the coordination of pulling and holding these muscles or releasing them. It definitely helps. It helps because doing some of the energy movements, the big draw, other practices that are very useful as tools are more successful when you have a healthy pelvic floor. You definitely don't need to do pelvic floor stretches every single day or a certain number of Kegels or reverse Kegels. Trust me, I was there. I had the checklist. I was thinking I could just game the system by perfecting my pelvic floor strength or flexibility. Again, the root causes are huge and a really big part of this. So these things are helpful, right? Maybe doing some pelvic floor yoga. I have some routines that are on YouTube. I have, of course, a lot more movement routines that are specially designed for this in the Vigor Sexual Strength program. but these can be assistive. And also love yourself along the way, because change does take time. Change takes time, and now if you're looking in this deeper place, you're actually willing to look at the root causes. Maybe you haven't done that before. Maybe you haven't really gone as deep as you're going to go now. So love yourself, even if you have sex today and you come quickly. Even if a month from now you're making changes, but it's still not all the way there. You're like, wow, why is it taking so long? Just love every part of you. That really does matter. Now, if you currently have pelvic tension, your pelvic floor muscles are tight most of the time, especially like a higher level of tension, or pelvic pain, testicular pain, perineal pain, anal pain, tightness, dysfunction. It could be called CPPS, pelvic floor dysfunction. If you're dealing with that and you're dealing with premature ejaculation, what I recommend is releasing the tension first, right? Looking at your root causes, revealing them, letting them go, relaxing the pelvic floor more. So if you are doing movement routines, stretches that open up and release versus strengthening and rebuilding are a lot more useful at this stage. Like I have two programs. One's called Overcome and one is called Vigor. The Overcome program really helps someone go from a place of dysfunction, chronic pain, high levels of tension to a neutral baseline. And then Vigor is like that next level of strength and control and capabilities. The reason why I give that example is if you right now have a high level of tension, how would you know? Well, if you just notice, pay attention to your pelvic floor, your perineum, the taint. Is it tight right now? Did you have to release it to let it go, or was it totally relaxed? Just like your shoulders may be totally relaxed right now. Your butt may be totally relaxed. Your hands, I don't know. Or maybe there was tension there too. But if there was quite a bit of tension, or you're noticing that consistent tension there, or you're also noticing the pain and dysfunction, things like that, what I mean is that this is a time to let that go. Not just it's not just I stretch every day and it's going to go away. Stretches can feel good. They're calming practices. They do help to release the musculoskeletal tension. But the brain is actually creating the tension, right? The brain is creating it via the autonomic nervous system due to the underlying stressors and their root causes. Right? Unless if we're talking about an acute soreness or a tension due to a specific workout, those things can happen too. But if we're talking about chronic, longer-term situations, that's what I'm referring to. The brain is actually activating it. So ultimately, if you're in this camp, which you may not be, you might be like, no, I don't have tension or pain. I just have pre-ejac. Literally, my body feels good down there. It's just that I'm coming too fast. You don't have to, I'm telling you these things, but it was for everyone who's dealing with the tension and the pain. Otherwise, the rest of this episode is still going to benefit you if you're just dealing with pre-ejac. The one I'm pointing out, though, if you have the tension and the pain side of things, don't overwhelm yourself with sexual practices. Like, I need to do these solo sexual practices and I need to last a long time and I need to start doing these things with my partner. You can integrate them some, actually. You can kind of start to take them into account. But really, again, let's let go. Let's let go and release and relax before you're kind of rebuilding, before you're adding air to that balloon, right? Let's let go of the tethers. Masturbation. This is an important area to look at. Changing the way that you do masturbate. Maybe you're not masturbating right now. You're in a relationship and you don't masturbate and you're only with your partner. That's fine. But masturbation, even if you're with a partner, is a really useful tool. You can do these solo sexual practices that help you to practice the different elements of an ecstatic sex experience. Being more primal, making sounds, slowing down your breath, feeling the sexual energy. It can be a lot easier to do this alone early on versus having a completely another body and energy that's arousing you and turning you on near you. So masturbation, it's not that you need to turn it into some training ground. Like, oh, I need to do it a certain way just to get better. No, it's a beautiful, joyful experience of pleasure and presence and connection with yourself. But let me give you some tips, some things to consider as you're overcoming pre-ejac. The first one is no porn. I highly recommend that you cut porn out. It's very beneficial for you everywhere in your life, actually, outside of even just overcoming premature ejaculation. It's really about asking yourself this question: do I want to enjoy watching a video on a screen? Is that my ideal ecstatic sexual experience? Or is it that I want to be deeply, fully connected in love with another person? That's obviously what you want. So if that's your choice, porn does not support that for many reasons. There are a lot of unrealistic aspects to porn. It's also quite mental, it's quite fantastical, and it puts you more in your head than in your body in many cases. So when you remove it from your masturbation, at first you might be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get aroused? Well, you can still use fantasy if you need to. I even would recommend starting to let that go. Now, that might seem odd initially. You might, well, like, what am I even doing then? I'm just like, how am I going to masturbate? Because you've been very connected to this thought of sex versus just having sex. But again, when you're with a partner, you don't want to be thinking about what's happening, thinking about how good it is. This is so hot. And like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, oh my God. All of that, if anything, just leads you to this higher level of arousal that might be more uncontrollable because you're just in your head versus being grounded, present. Trust me, you're feeling everything still, even more so. All the sensory experience. It's even more heightened because you're not thinking about it in the mental space. So we need to practice the way that we want to play. Porn, it's not beneficial from anything I've seen. It's not objectively bad. That's not the point of this conversation. I'm not saying it's objectively bad. If you are wanting to overcome pre-jack, you will be receiving more benefits by not using it, and also by starting to pull back on fantasies as well. So being more primal, really just being in your body. Also changing it up, changing up the way you touch yourself. It might be that you just used one hand back and forth, like a jackhammer, and you're just so used to that speed and that movement. Go to the other hand sometimes. Go slower. Touch your taint, your inner thighs, your butt, your lower abdomen, your testicles, your anus, like whatever you want to do. You could use an oil, you could use a lube or not. So slowing it down is a really big part of this. Going slower. You can build up and go faster later on in the session or change it, but if you're always doing the same speed all the time, when you're with your partner and you start to slow it down, most of the time your partner will really, really like that. And it's good just to have variability in that versus always being one-dimensional. Breathing slower helps a ton too because it's regulating your nervous system. That will really keep you in that parasympathetic state. So if you can practice breathing slower when you masturbate, it's going to be easier to do that with a partner as well. Also, not ejaculating with each session is huge. Almost every man on the planet has this connection of sex is always connected to ejaculation, whether that's masturbation or with a partner. I do the act and I always ejaculate at the end. Disentangle that. This is huge. Semen retention, of course, you've probably heard about it and everything. It keeps more of your life force energy in. It takes a lot of energy to create a baby, to create the sperm that then connects with an egg. So when you're keeping that inside of you, it really is a life force energy, a creative energy that stays with you. That's also a benefit. And I'm not someone who's like, you got to go a year or 3 months or 30 days or whatever. Honestly, if you go about a week or so without ejaculating, depending on your age, that's a pretty good cadence. That doesn't mean you only have sex once a week. You can have sex or masturbate more times than that. Enjoy that pleasure. But yeah, make the choice before also is really important, whether it's with sex or masturbation. Like, I'm not going to ejaculate this time. Now you may ejaculate. That's okay. But making the choice before you start is significantly more successful than once you get going because your body's just going to want it. And you're like, yeah, this is hard now to say no to this. So yeah, the outcome now, it's not ejaculation or an orgasm. it's pleasure, right? It's presence, it's connection. The other thing is anytime you do masturbate, do it a minimum of 10 minutes before you ejaculate, if you do end up ejaculating. Minimum of 10 minutes. That way, if you're engaging in solo practices, you're building up this feeling of endurance, this feeling where sex lasts longer. You might even make yourself a minimum of 15. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to be perfect about it. But I'm just pointing this out that you're going to be wiring and firing the neural circuitry in a different way now. Next, let's look at how to reveal and release the root causes, the reason why you even have premature ejaculation. So I went over these a lot more in episode 1 of this series, but these root causes, they play into the creation of not only pre-ejac, but also anxiety, depression, other psychophysiologic health symptoms like pelvic floor pain or issues, digestive issues such as IBS, chronic headaches. There are a lot of health conditions that are actually mind-body syndrome or mind-body conditions. The mind does affect the body in this way, just like it does with premature ejaculation. Remember, releasing the root causes, that's 80% of it. And the practices or the tools are 20%. Those practices where we change the way we masturbate, or when we start to do certain Taoist or tantric approaches even with our partner, these things are very useful. But if you still have the underlying root causes, creating pelvic floor tension or just tension in your mind and your body that are ultimately leading that geyser to exploding and releasing faster, we need to look at them. So the first step is reveal. What are you revealing? Things like repressed emotions. These are feelings that did come into your mind-body system, that came into your being at some point, but you couldn't handle it. It was too much. It was too much to handle, so you pushed it away. You didn't really consciously do this in most cases. I mean, if you had your grandma pass away and you were very close to her and it really, really hurt and you weren't able to really process that and you just went to school the next day and you kind of went on about your life, as an example, that could have become repressed. Maybe there was grieving later on and you had time to really cry it out, let it pass through, talk about it, accept it. Then it ran its natural course. But we can also have clinging too. It's not always just about this sort of negative thing that happened, but we can cling to a time in the past where, oh, back then I had the best career. I got paid really well. Everyone respected me. I had this amazing office. Or back this person I was dating, she was the one. She was the one. Like, I want that again. I want her again. There can be a clinging. And also that clinging can come in the form of the future. So repressed emotions, we wouldn't really use this word, but it's this tendency to look to the future to be your savior. I did this a lot. I'm like, I don't think I have any repressed emotions, but I was definitely living in the future a lot. Like, when that day comes, I'm reaching for my goals. I'm going to grab those. I'm going to achieve. I'm going to grow. I'm going to progress. I'm always getting better. I'm always getting better. I'm always going somewhere. And that meant I really wasn't here. That meant now really wasn't good enough. That meant someday will be good enough. And there's an emptiness, of course, that arrives when that moment arrives, because you can never find something in the future or the past. So you might find things like this, that you are very much trying to live in the future, or maybe you're still stuck in the past, or there are feelings that haven't been completely released and experienced to this point. That's very common. Trauma is just an emotion with a very high level of intensity. It's a very intense emotional experience that wasn't fully processed. And so similar to a repressed emotion, really. Cyclical thoughts, these are typically related to deeper experiences, emotions, past moments, or future fears. And the thoughts in this case, these cyclical ones that come up, you might call them repetitive, negative thoughts. They're the smoke from the fire of the repressed emotion, or from something deeper usually. They're the smoke though, so they are showing you a way in to what's beneath the surface there. Another really big one is to identify stress-inducing personality tendencies. These are personality tendencies that you actually developed over time in your childhood and in your youth as a coping mechanism to survive, to get love, to be seen as special, to make it, to develop, an individualized personality construct. What's interesting is that as you let these go, these coping mechanisms, the true you shines through more deeply than ever before. So you don't lose who you are. You lose the part of you that you thought you needed in order to survive. And so instead of just being in survival, you lean into creation. And that's pretty beautiful. So these stress-inducing personality tendencies, I'll just mention some of them. One could be, for example, fearing confrontation, being afraid to speak up for yourself, or also putting others before you, always being there for others, giving, but to a fault to where it could actually be taken advantage of. Also being overly conscientious, really considering everyone and everything all the time, and just putting a lot of stress on yourself to make sure that you're perfect. Perfectionism is another big thing to consider, or being a goodist. A goodist is like always wanting to do everything just right, never make a mistake, always be seen as responsible, always be seen as someone who doesn't drop the ball. You can always count on me. And perfectionism is really driven oftentimes from a parent or a teacher or some sort of impression that happened early in our life that you've got to do your very best, or it's got to be perfect, or it's not worth it, or there are a lot of things that can be beneath the surface there, right? Having low self-esteem, feeling unworthy. There are different types of personality tendencies that when you think about it, let's take an example, fearing confrontation. So maybe your boss treats you a certain way and you really don't like it. You would like to speak up, but you're afraid because you think you'll lose your job. Also, you don't really know how to talk out for yourself anyway. You haven't been able to do that before with your wife or growing up with your parents. It's easier just to put your head down and keep going than get into an altercation because you don't like that feeling of fighting. You don't want to quarrel. You don't want to confront anyone. And this will also repress anger, and it can turn into resentment. And it's imbalanced because you're not loving yourself enough to speak out for yourself in truth and integrity in a judicious way. So it puts a lot of pressure down inside yourself. Well, you'll notice that these personality tendencies, which I'm not going to get into great detail of them here. I wrote a book called The Root Truth. It doesn't come out till early 2025, so I don't know when you're watching this video. If it's already out, I would get it. I go into the personality side of it a lot more in the book. Harmful behaviors, things like, again, whenever you're feeling a fear or an emotion that you don't like, boom, I turn to grabbing my phone, or I turn to smoking a joint, or masturbating, or watching porn. It's like this unconscious, immediate distractive reactionism. And we all do it, but when you starting to reveal what those harmful behaviors are, and actually you notice what's triggering them, that's really what's important. Because when it comes to masturbation and porn too, people will be like, is it bad to watch porn? Is it bad to masturbate? There's nothing inherently wrong, but just notice how you feel right before you do it. Notice how you felt right before you grabbed your phone to open up Pornhub and start jacking off. What was it? What did it feel like? Were you feeling kind of crappy? Were you feeling kind of, were you just feeling in love with life and just free? And you're just like, this would be great right now just to kind of masturbate and watch some porn. Notice how you were feeling before you did the thing. You're also going to reveal beliefs. These are hard to see because a belief is an unexamined thought. It's a thought that is no longer thunk. It's not even, maybe you never thought it because you just took it to be reality. It could be a belief that you have to work hard to make money. You have to work hard to be valued or to be loved or something like that. I have to try and do it just right in order to heal. It's going to take a long time, or, whatever it is. There are lots of potential beliefs about reality, about your life, that are absolutely underneath the hood, running the show in some way. Conditioning. This is really more about things that were impressed upon you by others. Things that your mom or your dad would always say, or other caretakers, or teachers, or religion, or the culture that you grew up in. And you'll find, wow, like this is conditioning. Is this really true? Do I really want to carry this burden any longer? Does this benefit me? Is this freeing? Does this support unconditional love and sovereignty or not? So you'll start to reveal these things, right? And I'll tell you kind of how you could do that in a moment. But when you reveal things, and everyone's different, right? We all have different stories, different lives, different challenges to overcome, different things to let go of. So for one, it could be a really deep traumatic experience when you were 6 years old. For another, it might have been like not as much trauma. You could call it little t trauma. Maybe it was bullying here or there, or maybe it wasn't even anything like that. You just had like a great childhood, but you have this tendency to always be in the future and to always make the future more important than now, or just as an example, right? So if someone might have more personality traits they're looking at, someone might have some addictions, and they're like, why are those addictions there though? That question will lead you in. Someone will have conditioning from a religion or from their culture, from their family. We all have some of these things. I just mean, what's going to be revealed for you will be different from everyone else. All right, so you want to have the revelation. You want to reveal. How do you do it? Create an environment to hear the message of what needs to be let go of. An environment of space and silence is really the way to do that. If you're really busy in your head, you're at the topical level of mind, in the conscious mind, how are you going to get down to the subconscious? There's that barrier. That barrier there needs to be dropped beneath. That barrier can be dropped under in different ways. You can use tools like breath work. I mean, if you do a long breath work journey, a 30-minute one, a 1 hour one or something, you don't think very much after a while. You really start to drop in. You have a meditation. Journaling can help with awareness. It can, because you're just free flowing, kind of throwing it all up, vomiting it out. It's just coming out of you. You're not filtering it ideally at all. Nature walks, or being outside, being purely in nature. But the more you can create space and silence. So I'm not just talking about like 10 minutes a day I journal, or 10 minutes a day I do a meditation. You typically need more decompression time, whether it be like I take a whole Sunday off and I'm going to do nothing but just go on some hikes and meditate and journal. Or I go to a 2-day retreat or a 7-day retreat, or like a longer meditation. Or honestly, the more you can create space from the distraction, or you don't give yourself distraction options. No phone, no communication, no going to work, you create these pockets or these containers where you can reveal, where the message can be heard. Because I'm telling you, if you're working 10 hours a day and then you're thinking and doing and going and distracting and you're all over the place, when you turn off a ceiling fan, the fan continues to rotate, doesn't it? Even though there's no electricity going to it for a little while. And then it goes to stillness. So that's what happens. You need to give yourself the time to let the dust settle, because the dust is kicked up and all over the place, and don't kick up more dust. And I have some meditations and practices on the YouTube channel, and of course in the programs. We do a lot of these root cause release sessions. They're really, really powerful because they're deeper experiential moments, and we use them because they work. You can also work with someone else to help you with some of these things, like a therapist. Hypnosis is possible. There are different modalities. Oftentimes they can help with the revealing, but you still have to deal with it. That helps you to bring it out in the open, but it's still up to you to let it go, or to not engage with it or feed into it anymore. If you want something that works really, really well, I highly recommend retreats, such as a silent retreat. A 10-day Vipassana may seem a little extreme to you. They're very good. Something I often recommend to my clients when they're having trouble revealing the root causes is take 2 days off, go to a cabin in the middle of the woods, or just separate yourself from your normal life in some way, ideally in the quietude of nature, and give your mind no escapes, no options. There's no work, there's no communication, there's nothing to look at, nothing to do. You could do some yoga, you can go on some walks, you can eat some healthy food, sit in meditation, things like that. But ultimately, having a longer period of time where you really interrupt the patterns of the mind, you interrupt the typical day by day activities, it's really, really helpful. It helps you to create space. You can't force the deeper patterns to arise. You can't just be like, I want to see them right now. However, when you create this space in the silence, they naturally do arise for release so that you can be in balance and harmony. They're always trying to do that. It's always trying to, your mind body system is intelligent. It's always trying to reorganize and rebalance itself. It's just that we get in the way with the mind. Notice how the mind goes into distraction and addictions and focuses on the physical symptoms so that it doesn't have to feel the deeper matter. It redirects you really fast. It redirects you. So let's talk about releasing now. So maybe you've been revealing some of these things. How do you actually let it go? You let something go by no longer reacting to it or feeding into it. So there could be a thought of you being a failure that comes into your mind because you just shut down a business for the second time, you're in bankruptcy, you have thoughts of your dad saying like you're just going to be a failure, you're never going to amount to anything. Like all this stuff's coming in and it feels so real. And it feels so real in that moment. When you don't give it reality, you don't feed into it and be like, yeah, I believe you. I do suck. I am a failure. When you stop doing that and you're able to sit there with equanimity, that you're starting to let go of it already. That could be said for anything, whatever it is. And there could be an emotion like a deep sadness or even a fear of some sort that you've been really not wanting to feel. And if you allow it to come up and actually be with you fully feel it, let it run its natural course. That is what we're talking about here. You're letting it be. When you let it be, you let it go. Letting it go is not an action. It may sound like it is. Like, I'm letting it go now. I'm letting it go now. I don't want this anymore. That's actually still resistance. That's actually still the mind doing that. So it's just relax and release in the face of it when you get triggered or whenever it arises, instead of pushing it away or going asleep again via some form of distraction. All right, so let's talk about some other steps to overcome pre-jack. I'm going to talk about what you can do in your life and then with your partner, like actually having sex, because you're probably wondering, and why did I leave that last? Because it matters, but these other elements are primary. So in your life, because what you release will also change how you live your life externally. Since you're not tethered like that before, you're actually going to feel more free. You're going to feel lighter. So when you start to do this work of discovery, revealing, releasing, letting go, it's not something you just do in the 2 days or something. It's a process, right? But it happens, and you're looking in that area now instead of just trying to fix things at the level of doing. But yeah, your life will start to change, and you'll start to make more aligned choices. The people you're hanging out with, the activities you engage in, the way that you show up legitimately. Because if you let go of this fear of confrontation, next time someone triggers you or next time you need to speak up for yourself, you'll actually do that. You need to enact it. You need to begin embodying the changes. And it's easier to do now that you've let go of that subconscious content, actually. Also, be your authentic self. Like, when do you feel the most free? What are things that you might do alone, or perhaps with just like one other person who you see as a close friend of yours or a family member, but you would never do in front of others or in public or something like that. That's what we're looking for. Like, where's that comfort zone? Where's the fear barrier or your edge? Because you just want to let your energy be free all the time. And if you ever notice there's a contraction and there's a pulling back and there's a stopping of yourself, why is that happening? And how can you be free? How can you let that go? This can look very different for different people. For one, it might be speaking out more, being more social, maybe dancing, going out in public, singing, moving, telling others about your ideas, telling others what you think, and not being afraid to hold things back. Whatever it is, like, but you're just being you, maybe making jokes, your sense of humor. Some people will love you, some people won't. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. You're going to be free, though. Your energy is really free. And that helps. That translates into the bedroom big time, really big time, because you're not staying in this contracted state throughout your life, throughout your day any longer, and then expecting to be like totally free in this sex god whenever you get to the bedroom. Also, going outside of your comfort zone, just noticing if there's something that you're afraid of. Maybe people are about to jump into this cold lake, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that. But just notice, like, why is that? Like, what are you afraid of? I'm not saying you have to jump into a cold lake. The point of it is, whether you're being invited to do a plant medicine journey or do cold therapy or be called up on the stage to sing karaoke or dance at someone's wedding, or I don't know, whatever it is, like, where are you not free? Where are you still not free? Liberate yourself there. And this is also kind of related to the giving 0 Fs, giving 0 fears about anything. And not being concerned about what other people think, not worrying about how they see you. Be your truth, right? If that means you lose a friend or you are no longer going to work at this place, you're going to be in a more aligned place, in a more aligned relationship than ever before. And I love this line. It always helps whenever I see a negative comment on the internet or I, run into a situation where I'm doing something kind of crazy and out there. I would think this thought: I am not who you think I am. You are who you think I am. It's really about someone projecting an insecurity, a belief system, a perception that they have out onto you. It's more about them than you. So you can lovingly know that with compassion, let it slide off, and just be you. So what about with your partner? Having sex, actually engaging, what can you do there? First, let's shift from performance, sex being about you performing, all the weight being on you to make sure your partner comes, to make sure they orgasm before you orgasm. Taking all that off and just going instead to presence, pleasure, and connection. It's about us being together because I love you. It's about us being in the moment. And that could be making out, kissing, using my fingers, my tongue, using my cock, using toys if you want, like whatever. But it's just us being together. Maybe there's a long period of penetration before ejaculation. Maybe there's not. But right now with your partner, take off that outcome-based thought. It's all about the O. It's all about her having an orgasm before me. That's what it was for me. I was like, I just want to make sure my partner has an orgasm before I do. I really, because if not, I felt like a failure. It feels like I was holding something back from her. I really want her to feel good. I want her to have an amazing experience. I want her to love it so much. And so I was putting a lot of pressure on myself there. Another thing that can really help is during foreplay, whether you do this just within yourself or even together with your partner, 5 to 10 breaths, 5 to 10 deep breaths. You can go in through the nose, out through the mouth, or you can go in through the nose, out through the nose. It could be something like a 4 count in, a 6 count, or an 8 count out. And what this does, it really slows you down. As the arousal is revving up, you're actually keeping that nervous system really balanced. Now, if you do this together and you lock eyes and you like put your hands on each other's heart or something different. You're just kind of there and you take some breaths together. You can really create, first of all, a heart coherence. There's an electromagnetic field that we have, and we really can lock in our heart rhythm, our heart rate, which is pretty phenomenal by doing this. And it really creates a safe space of connection. And oftentimes, if you're a little anxious or a little concerned or worried, your partner can help ground you down and really bring you here, slow you down. It's pretty phenomenal. Like, my partner's helped me with this before many times, and very grateful for it. When you're in the act, whether foreplay or whatever stage you're at, express yourself. Make sounds. This is a great way to release the built up energy too, like yelling out or just saying something crazy because it feels good. Don't hold back that energy, but be the authentic you. Locking eyes, being vulnerable. Use your hands, use your eyes, use your mouth, use your legs, like use your whole body, use everything you have so that there's lots of touch points, lots of sensory experiences happening versus it all just being built up around the genitals. This can really help disperse awareness and attention, blood flow, all of it together. Also noticing your arousal, right? Noticing about where you're at. And when you get to your arousal level 7, I would recommend to stop thrusting, to pull out even. That can also be a good idea depending on how things are going for you right now. Pull out. And I personally love the 3-2-1 big draw. This is what I teach my clients to do after they have pulled out. And what's cool is that you can end up removing the 3 or the 2, and they're just training wheels. The training wheels can be removed over time, and you can just do it with your mind. But 3 is 3 deep breaths. So you take 3 deep breaths. This is after you pull out typically. And then 2 big muscle squeezes. So squeezing the arms, the buttocks as well, and the back. So you're bringing a lot of blood flow, dispersing it to different parts of the body via these muscle contractions. And then 1 energy movement. That's where we actually bring the energy with the breath, the big draw up the spine, all the way to the brain, and then disperse it throughout the body. That's a nuanced motion that takes some practice, but ultimately it's a nice little tool you can use. There are lots of other tools. You can touch the perineum, you can push down, there's the $1 million point, right? There are different things you can do with your testicles and your penis, and they're all tools. You might find one that works for you. The tools aren't the most important thing, but again, as you're releasing the root causes, as you're really locking in with vulnerability with your partner, by the way, talk to your partner about what's going on. I want to have ecstatic sex with you. I want to have deeper connection than ever before. And I'm learning some things, and I'm letting go of things that are not myself. And I used to have fear about this, and my body would come quick, but I know that my body can last longer, and we could do this together. And you just be open and upfront. Do not hide in a corner thinking you're going to fix all of this so that, I see this happen sometimes. I'll have a client who is especially in a longer term relationship or in a marriage, and they feel so bad about it, and their partner is pretty much belittling them for the fact that they can't last very long. And they're like, I got to fix this. I got to fix this to save my marriage. I got to fix this so that my partner will respect me and love me again. First of all, these are all big things relationship-wise that have to be addressed. But like this idea of just going over alone and fixing it, you don't have to do that. Just tell the truth and be you and connect with your partner. They love you. And if they don't love you, they don't respect you, that's a whole another thing that has to be looked at that's not related to premature ejaculation anyway. Now, if you do come, even though maybe you made the choice, like, I'm not going to come this time, right? Because you don't want to come with every sexual experience. It's a good idea to do semen retention depending on how often you're having sex. But if you do come, just enjoy it. Just be with your lover. Maybe go again. Maybe make them come or not, or just whatever. Like that. This is beautiful. It's amazing. Also, be a non-reaction, because a lot of times when you're starting to change this and you're like, I'm going to change this, I'm going to last longer. Like, what? Why did I come so fast? Like, what? And you can get in your head about it. And I had lots of moments where I'd go to the bathroom. I would pretty much feel like crap. I would just disengage. I would go like cold because I felt like a failure. I felt like it's still not working. That's not non-reaction. Non-reaction is what is right now. That's okay. I'm not going to react to it. I'm just going to be right here, right now. And that's easier said than done, but you can do it. And it helps a ton. It's just like if you have physical body symptoms and pain, and we talk about somatic tracking, we talk about not reacting and feeding in with fear. There's a fear pain cycle that you get stuck in. There's a fear dysfunction cycle as well, whether it be urinary frequency, ED, or prejac. So there's more that could be said. These are the major areas to look out and to make changes in. I'm here to help you if you need more help. This is literally what I do now. I have a program called Vigor Sexual Strength. I walk side by side with you to make sure that the tools, the program, the path actually work for you. So I'd love to have you in there. Also, I want to give you a gift called Control Your Cum. It's this really cool mini program that I made. It's $97. But since you listen to this, just send me a DM on Instagram with the word control. And also, if you want to tell me about what's going on, anything else like that, I'll send you Control Your Cum for free. It has a masterclass in it. It has a conscious masturbation guided audio, a couples pre-sex connect breathwork. It's got an anxiety chill pill meditation. It's got a root cause Mad Lib, which is actually mad funny. It's got some cool stuff in there. And yeah, it's a program that has been for sale because it's really valuable. But yeah, just send me a DM and I'll get that for you. And let me know how this was for you. Let me know if you have any other questions, any challenges that have been coming up for you. I'm here to serve you and hope this was helpful in some way. Take care.